I am here with Greg Lesher. He's the founder of Outback Energy Systems. Greg, it's a pleasure to have you here. When I heard you last week, and when I see what Outback Energy Systems is doing, I am very excited to have this opportunity to talk with you. So,
Thank you.
with that, would you give us a little bit of background on Outback Energy Systems?
Yes, I decided about 20 years ago to go off grid and kind of homestead myself and be self-reliant. And so we went ahead and purchased some land about 18 miles out of town. No power lines, no surrounding, just some road access. And I started to put a house on there and started to develop some electrical system, my own power system. And in the process, the person I was dealing with suggested that I, become a dealer in solar because he knew I had the technology and knew how to do it. And that was really the beginning of the solar, the PV section of it. And after drilling a well and borrowing some equipment, I realized I could build my own rig a little bit better than the one I was using. And because the well that I drilled was 90 feet and all I got was salt water. So I built a bigger unit and went down 200 feet. And all I found again was salt water. And nobody really knew out here how far the fresh water was, or if they can even get any. In fact, south of us, about a mile, there's a farm that drilled 700 feet, and all they could get was salt water.
Oh.
So they actually had to pipe their water in from another well. So I began my quest for fresh water, and I had purchased an RO system. And that was just a failure because the salt, it was a $10,000 unit. And this was like 15 years ago. The salt content was just too high for it to handle. So I began to do some research and seek some help from some friends who were very technical minded. One of them actually ran a lab out at IPSC, which is a power plant just north of Delta. And I delved into distilled water using solar stills. And no matter how hard I looked and where I read, I could not find any solution that would take care of anything but a few gallons of water a day. And it just didn't make sense to build, 100 of these things. So in frustration, because I'd felt very good about this place, I took it to prayer. And I woke up about 3 o'clock in the morning. I asked a simple question: how can I garden with what I've got on my land here? And I happened to have a bunch of tires out there that I was considering building an earth ship out of. And I had this dream, and I got up at 3 o'clock in the morning and I wrote down the design of this thing, and it was using a tire for a still. And so I proceeded to build these, and I ended up having a garden. I had about 30 of these things all lined up, and I had them on a little drip system to supply the salt water to the tire. And of course, the distilled water would feed the plant. And I had a nice garden until it got flooded. And while I was sitting there in frustration, looking at my flooded out garden, about every 7 years, and luckily I built up a little bit higher. I realized that this still I had built, there was nothing like it. I had never seen anything designed quite like it. It had a flat top on it. And at that moment, I realized that this thing was scalable, which is exactly what I'd been looking for. So through that question, I ended up having 2 questions answered, 2 problems solved. So I began to get some pallets of cinder blocks and build myself I think it was a 45-foot by 14-foot structure, walls, about 2.5 feet high. And that was going to be the still. And I went ahead and put a pond liner in it and proceeded to build this still. 3 days later, I went out there with my camera, my little flip phone, and there was water spilling out all over the place. And I reached down in the bucket, and it was fresh water. And it looked like someone left the hose on a little bit. So I went ahead and filmed that really quick. And as I was sitting there looking at it, I thought, well, how can I get, what's holding me back from getting more? A few days later, I'd been playing around with it, and I realized that, well, collection surface and how fast I could boil that water. And the collection surface was very simple, because everything that was coming off that surface was being collected. Well, why couldn't I put some tubes through there and make more collection surface? Well, that just blew my mind, how much collection surface I can add, kind of like a condenser. And so the fresh air could blow through it, because it only takes 7 degrees difference before the surface starts sweating and collecting the distillates. And of course, the other problem was solved with using heat panels, collection panels that had the parabolic troughs and evacuated tubes. And I realized that I could take a fluid like oil, and as I did some research, I found silicon-based heat transfer fluid. I could run this heated up fluid underneath a tray and boil this water and have a collection surface above it so vast that it was unlimited. So I made a 1 meter square cube with these collection surfaces, and put it over a tray that was 1 meter by 1 meter wide and long, and built a few of these panels and ran some cooking oil through them. And lo and behold, in 1 day of sunlight in July, I pulled close to 90 gallons of water out of it.
Wow.
And I realized this was the answer. But this all started, the Outback Energy Systems, when I wrote a book on my tire stills called Seawater to Garden. And I had somebody contact me from Texas, because I was on a little radio station doing a little interview, and he was interested in the tire stills, but he was more interested in the well drilling. So that's where I got into well drilling. I ended up building a unit, and we built it in Senegal, West Africa, and got involved with USAID, and went to Matam and then drilled a well there. And from that point on, I went back a year later, and people were interested in my rig outside of USAID. We went ahead and built a rig there, and it's flourished. We had some locals observe it, got together with some machinists and built their own, and now they're now they're going around drilling wells.
Wow. So on your website, you say that we have a solution to gaining real water independence and want to share what we've discovered with the world. Talk about that. That's quite a statement.
Yes. Well, there are so many. One of the things I did recognize when I was in Senegal was it was very difficult for water. By 6 o'clock in the morning on the second floor of the building I was staying in, the water pressure was gone. They didn't have enough.
Mhm.
Yet walking along the beach, right there in Dakar, where I was staying, I realized there's a whole beautiful ocean full of water, and I saw streams coming from uh, the drainage system, I guess you would say, the sewer system. Not maybe not sewer. It didn't smell too good, but it was still water flowing from inland out to the ocean, just being dumped into it. And I thought, there's a salute that, here it is. Here's the answer. We can take this using any water source, inland, uh, even the gray water coming out of the house, all water. We could take this water and become independent with it and not have to worry about regulations because it's distilled, water rights because it's wastewater, uh, the ocean, who's going to tell you can only take so many shares of that? It's an endless supply. So, yeah, I came up with the idea of real water independence for a site because that's exactly what people can do. They can become independent
Mhm.
from uh, municipal water systems if they have a source.
Does temperature have an impact?
Uh, Not really. If you've got you're doing an enhanced version, the solar panels create your heat. And also, I noticed in midwinter when there was snow out there, and I actually scraped the snow off my solar still, the top, because it was flat, and it doesn't need to be flat. You can shape it like a roof to keep the snow off, because no matter where the water falls, even if it goes down the sides, it's collected. Uh, I realized that it was still operating, and it was still warm inside there. It was like kind of like a window in the house.
Okay.
Yeah. And the evaporation was still going on, so it really doesn't matter. That was midwinter, and it was like 10 to 15 degrees outside. Of course, the water was salty, so it wasn't really frozen. So with a seawater source, unless it's cold enough to actually freeze the seawater, it just keeps going.
Mhm. So give us a couple of examples of outcome with customers or places where you've done a flat top still installation.
Well, we were going to do some in Australia, and I was in a patent process, and I decided that it was just taking too long, and with things that were going on in the world and the droughts, I decided to go ahead and write a book. And yeah, that was the first book was called The Solar Desalination Water Station. And I've got a few people who needed it and searched it out. And one of them was in Australia. There's an island somewhere off the coast of Melbourne, that area. I can't remember what it's called, but there was a sheep farm or a sheep rancher there who had problems with salt water. He went ahead and he started building his own from the book. And yeah, I was surprised he built 3 of them. And they were smaller, but they were getting about 10 gallons a day out of each one of them. And he had them set up, for sheep. So, and these were totally passive. So there's one example that they're being used, and it's really so new, the technology, that there's not many people out there that know about it. And so my goal is to get it out.
So with the book, so somebody could just read the book and build it, which without paying you a royalty or anything?
Absolutely, I've authorized in the book for your own personal use,
Mhm.
not commercial
Yeah.
or charitable. If it's charitable, I want to be involved in it.
Mhm.
If there's going to be a project that's going to involve some, I'd really like to be involved in it. So I've authorized that. So anybody that purchases this book can build their own
Hmm.
for
So
their own use.
I'm here in Hartwell, Georgia, on Lake Hartwell. We have 14 acres with goats and horses and dog, pony, donkey. Donkey protects the goats. So I could build one here and produce water for the ranch.
Absolutely. You could do an enhanced version. You could just do some passive versions, and you could take all of your gray water or water that's, non-usable, and run it through there and end up with drinking water.
I could take it right out of the lake, actually, I guess.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely.
So lake water can be used for things like that. So
Get rid of all the microplastics and everything else that we're finding everywhere.
well, in this lake, there's an issue with PCB also, so which was put in there 40 years ago and still a problem. So you've begun to establish a relationship with Global Waterworks. In that, and you've had some conversations with Mary, why Global Waterworks, and what are you finding there that you enjoy or that is beneficial?
They're not just a nonprofit that is actually only seeking donations to do projects of their own, not really interested in technology. Most of them, all the ones I contacted, they really didn't have any use. They didn't have any vision.
Mhm.
Mary got a hold of me, and I realized she was full of vision, and she really understood what was being presented. So I went ahead and sent a copy to her, and the rest is history. I mean,
Yeah.
it really is. Well, let's just put it this way. This old friend of mine, he's passed away now. He retired from that IPSC. He was in the lab there, and he had been involved in municipal water for quite a bit of his life. And when he came out, and we were trying to figure out how to build a still, and this was before I discovered what I did. But when I finally did discover it, I invited him out. He took one look at it, and he's just dumbfounded. He sat there and he looked at me and he goes, "This is the biggest discovery in water ever." He says, "I doubt in your lifetime you'll see anything bigger."
Wow.
He says, "This has got to be worth billions if you could get it out."
Mm.
So that was kind of a wake up that I had something here, and I felt like I need to get it out and not capitalize on it, but just get it out. And if it takes care of me, then that's just wonderful,
So,
financially.
so where do you see Outback Energy Systems 3 years from now, 5 years from now?
Well, I'd like for things to get going to the point where, hey, if we had opportunities in some of these third world nations who are having water trouble, I would love to go out there. And if they have problems with the groundwater, we've got the solution for that. If they have groundwater, we've got the solution for that. But no matter what well you drill, if you find water, it doesn't matter what the state is, the well is no longer useless.
Hmm.
Because a lot of the waters along the coastline, a lot of the wells, when you've got your landmass, the rain, it pushes it out to the sea, clear of the edges, and you'll get springs under the on the coastlines. Well, there's being so much water pulled out of the ground because of these droughts that the seawater is actually working back in and getting into the wells.
Okay. Mhm.
So this is a solution for that.
Mhm. Hmm. So that is, you said you really you're willing to fundamentally give this away for people that want to build their own.
Yes.
So we came off a call on Friday with quite a few people from India who got very interested and excited about your technology. What were your thoughts coming off that call?
I thought it was wonderful because what better way, than to have some students get some hands-on experience.
Yeah.
Because most of the papers I read, in fact, practically all of them on solar distillation, were from universities and students who had been studying a lot around the Middle East and India, all over the place, because water is a problem. And to get them involved in it and to see the potential, this thing could end up replacing. I'm just going to flat out say it. This thing could end up replacing reverse osmosis for numerous reasons. The first reason being the power consumption of a reverse osmosis plant is incredible. You build a great big plant for a city, you've almost got to build a power plant to run the thing.
Absolutely right.
And then the output destroys the ocean. Heavily concentrated rejected salt water is dumped back into the ocean, and the plant life and animal life just start to vanish. They can't handle that content. There is no output from this other than salt. This could be collected, minerals could be separated. Just the output alone would be more. The income from that would be more than enough to take care of the maintenance. It would, yeah. So, I'll make that statement because I think it really could be done. I mean, the plants could be built and look like a normal building.
Mm-hmm.
You wouldn't even know what it is. It could all be internal.
That's very, very interesting.
Yeah.
Very interesting. Well, Greg, I really appreciate your time today and enjoyed the conversation, and look forward to more conversation with you in the future.
Sounds good. Thank you very much.
So one question.